dear listeners, to our episode of Eli Ed Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of learning and development, exploring the latest trends and innovations that are shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Inna, a learning strategist at Eli. And today, joining our conversation is Christian Bjerre Nielsen, an experienced leader and strategic change agent with a lifelong dedication to learning. So today we'll be covering such topics as learning the flow of work, video training for just-in-time training, and the seamless integration of mobile devices and AI. Hello, Christian. How are you?
Hello, Ina. I'm really doing good. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, totally. So before we dive deep into the topics I mentioned, we've got a thing called rapid fire questions that we ask. It's the same set of questions that we ask all of our guests. And by the end of the season, we will summarize the answers. So first things first, what book or resource can you recommend for our L&D specialists?
I would definitely point to the book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow.
Mhm.
And the main reason is that it's about how we as people perceive and take decisions, etc. And a lot of the examples and cases he covers are also relevant for people in learning and development.
Great. Okay, who do you recommend to follow and invite to this podcast from L&D experts?
I would point to Eric Francis. He's a well-known writer and
Mhm.
specialist about training in the US. He has a lot of good things about asking questions and how to understand the depth of knowledge and how you really transfer not only just the understanding, but maybe also the skills and the ability to move on. Additionally, we are really proud to say that he's one of the advisory board members of Equalio. So
Mhm.
in that respect, we are so fortunate to tap into one of the resources in learning and development.
I enjoy the part of asking the right question. I feel that's the 50% of any job.
Exactly, and that's one of his points is that if you don't know how to pose a question, then it's really hard to get an answer. That's point one. And the second point is you need to understand your audience because when you have like 20 people in front of you, they may need different questions to get the same outcome of the learning. That's one of his sort of specialities.
Yeah, great. Next one, can you share a memorable failure or setback on your L&D journey or educational journey, and how did you overcome it?
That's a hard one, but actually, I have a problem with fishing boats and training.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest, dates back to the early part of this century, 2000, 2001 in Singapore, and a few years later in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. And in both cases, we were really unfortunate that I was about to launch one of the first learning platforms in Denmark, and our provider, she was hosting it out of Singapore, but unfortunately, a fishing boat tore up the internet cable from Singapore to the rest of the world.
Mhm.
And we only had you could sort of see the bits and the bytes dripping through. So it was simply impossible to launch it and do our first test course there. So that's how we overcome it. Well, there was nothing else to do than wait. Because you were you were at the mercy of a fishing boat who tore the internet cable. And then a few years later, I was in Abu Dhabi
Mhm.
and we were in the middle of a training session. Everything was going fine. We had everything up and running. And then suddenly it slowed down and nothing worked. And it turned out that once again, a fishing boat tore the cable from the Emirates to the rest of the Asia. And again, we were like sitting there and could do nothing. So I didn't really overcome it, but it showed that when you work with technology-based training, you have a couple of things that are simply outside your control.
Yeah.
And you can't even mitigate because everything is based on being connected, which is also part of the things we're going to cover today.
Yeah, fantastic story. And I know now that you're smiling, telling me this story, but that time I imagine it wasn't
It
that.
was like, first of all, you thought, what is wrong? Did we find the wrong provider? And we were phoning and everything. And then she said, we found out the problem is that a fishing boat just tore the cable out of Singapore to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay, coming back to L&D specialists, so what question must be asked on each and every job interview for L&D specialist?
Can you please tell me a little about how important time to market is for learning content versus doing it optimal from a learning perspective about didactic and everything?
Mhm.
And the reason for that question, and it also ties well into what we're doing at Recourse and my general background and approach to learning, that is, you can clearly, there are some rules you need to follow, and there are some patterns or some things that works best with different technologies and people. But at the end of the day, if you spend too much time optimizing the learning, you never get it out. So you have to balance. And sometimes it's more important for everyone to get something out that does part of the job now instead of something that does
Mhm.
95% of the job in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
And this is one of the questions you like to sort of ponder. And to be
Mhm.
honest, just to give you a very recent experience, we had a very experienced person for a cup of coffee the other day, and everything went well until we asked her to, could you come with some feedback on how our platform works, etc. And then suddenly she said, no, she wouldn't really do that because she wouldn't know if she should evaluate the platform or the learning options and the didactics and everything because she thought that we're too simple. So she would not come with a real good answer. So she wouldn't do it. She's probably a person I would not hire to do a job
Mhm.
like this.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I see the point. Okay, and final question of our rapid question set. If you had to give one piece of advice for a starter in L&D, what would that be?
Embrace AI in
Mhm.
every aspect of what you do around learning. But remember that we are teaching people and not machines.
Mhm.
I think that's the short answer to that question.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. But I do love the perspective that you're in the middle, right? So you are not denying either of the ways. Okay, so starting from learning in the flow of work, one of the biggest topics out there, one of the biggest trends out there for the last several years. And I'd like to start by sharing my own experience when I actually remembered and while I was reflecting on my job, my working journey with you and our conversation. And that was, and later on I shared with the situation on LinkedIn. And for those of you who don't know, well, the situation is really simple and minor. I couldn't set up a printer. That sounds really silly of me, but the truth is that that printer had 15 networks, right? It had 10 SharePoint websites where I couldn't find any information, even where it said how to set up a printer, right? So this really small example shows that we might need to reevaluate the way we share the information. The channels of knowledge transfer need to be updated. And right now we have all the tools for that, right? The obvious answer is learning in the flow of work. You have a fantastic perspective on this topic, and let's dive into this topic a little bit more. So, how has this concept changed throughout the years, and what role does it bear right now?
I think it has changed a lot because previously you didn't really talk about it because you needed to learn it before you were there where you needed it, simply because the mobile phone or the video or whatever was not everywhere. It was not ubiquitous, so it was not available readily for everyone. So that's one of the biggest enabler for learning in the flow of work. That is that now everybody, they have a device here like my cell phone. It
Mhm.
can open a link, it can scan a QR code, you can send me an email or a text message, and I would be able to follow something on a video or something other or another learning media, text, PDF, whatever. But you are connected and it's easy to get the knowledge when you need it. And that's one of the reasons that learning in the flow of work is suddenly much more real and realistic today than it was just 5, 10, or 15 years ago. Secondly, what we also learn is a little like your experience with the printer. Yes, I know what a printer is and I know what a printer does. And in most cases, I can print, but each printer has something special.
Mhm.
And very often it looks very much like the printer you're used to do, but there's something you need to do specially, like for instance, oh, you cannot connect directly unless it's a secure network or something like that, or you cannot connect with a USB stick, but it's possible to do near field Bluetooth connection or whatever. And that means that you know the concept of how does it work to print, but when you know the details, you need to be able to learn this is how I put it together. So I would say that's also another thing. And last but not least, what we see is that the amount of information that most workers or most employees have to learn now in order to function in their job role is maybe twice as high as 10 years ago or 100 times as high as 200 years ago.
Mhm.
So that means that you simply need to have more learning or instruction or manuals available when you need it, not when you're sitting in a classroom the first week of your employment in a new company, but you need it now, 6 months down the road when you're standing in front of something. One of the examples that I see to be very strong, that is one of our customers. They're doing intelligent traffic lights.
Mhm.
And some of the instruction videos, the first one is basically, oh, these are the tools you need when you have to go out in the field and do this work. And the good thing is that then you don't need to remember, is there any special tool I need to do to have around when I go for this type of operations? But they can simply say, oh, let me just check the video. And then there's a 15-second video that shows you these are the 5 tools you need to have. And if there's a change, somebody just updated the video. So now there are 6 tools. 6 months later, there are 4 tools, etc. But they just need to check it when they have an assignment like that. They don't need to go and recall or memorize or go to refresher session every month about this. They can say, I'm about to do this operation. This is my work. I'm almost ready to start it. So right in the second stage is check the tools, I'll check the video, and then I do it like that.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's a,
yes.
um,
So if I put myself in the shoes of overwhelmed L&D, where you have to put up out the fire every day, you have so much work that to think of implementing something new, you would have always two arguments: A, I don't have time for this, and B, it's expensive. And these are the two misconceptions that we have to fight with, right? Let's use that word. What would you say to these two arguments?
I will say video is the first answer, and the second one is generated video.
Yeah.
Because if you sit down and do a learning curriculum or learning course in the traditional way, and you think in the traditional way, then you're right. Then it's a process. You need to have a script, you have a budget, you need to find someone to film it, or you need to know the specialist to know the tools, how to set up everything. But right now, with the advances in technology and in mobile technology especially, what you can do is say, I can take my phone and use that to record the first version of a training course on site, or by, I'm changing a modem. Hey, hold my phone while I'm doing it. That's one thing that is sort of the really important enabler here. And the second one is, for instance, with a platform like Eli,
Mhm.
that you have the ability to write the script. So you have the text and everything is there. And yes, then you have an avatar who maybe does the talking, a little like you or me are doing here. And if there's a change, I can just go in, update the script, regenerate the video, and then publish it out. So so that is what I see as the two best arguments against it, and say yes, you can still do studio quality learning programs with lots of thinking, but you can really come a long way with a video generated either on a platform like Eli, or recorded live from your system or from your phone directly into your Qualio for the training.
Mhm.
So in this way, the first version can come out, well, basically as fast as your internet connection is to upload the video and then download it to your device. So agreed, there are still challenges in maintenance, there are still challenges in creation, but if you're happy with short to the point videos, then you can really engage with new modern technology and utilizing the modal boil concept. And then you're really, really helping people because you can get this video out to the guy who's about to do something and not wait 3 months
Yeah.
or ask him.
If I had $1 every time when someone quit or the policy changed, then you need to cut out the entire part of the video, which actually is good, and you could still use it, and it still refers perfectly to the topic and to the company we created the video for. So yeah, in this respect, the time and flexibility is out of the table, right? The issue. Speaking of expensive, right? So you need resources. I've loved the example of QR code that you've given. Could you share this one? Because I'm sure it's also not that cumbersome and not that hard technologically to achieve, right?
No, but because to be honest, when somebody said a couple of years ago, hey, why don't you add QR codes to your
Mhm.
training or the topics, and you said, why QR codes are dead? And that is the biggest misconceptions that we ever found out.
Yeah.
A basic, simple technology, but what you can do is put it on the machine itself, so people don't have to learn all the routines or the maintenance stuff. You put one QR code for operation and another QR code for maintenance and a third one for cleaning. And then you can scan the one you need to do. And as long as the QR code is pointing to something that is permanent, so that
Mhm.
the link is not updated when you're changing the video or changing the text, etc., then you have something that lasts forever. And again, we're back to I can learn in the flow of work. How do I operate the machine? Oh, there's a problem. I can check the FAQ troubleshooting video, and I can even, if I have the rights, the access right, I can even directly upload a new video and say, hey, Inna, I think you should add this as a new topic in the FAQ because this was the problem I had and this was how I fixed it. And in this way, using the QR code, you are first of all making it simple to access. People don't need to be registered or anything as long as the content is publicly available. And then they scan it and they see that it works for them and they're happy. And if it doesn't work, they do a recording and send it back. So you have the opportunity to engage much more using QR codes. A very simple technology. The backend can be rather complex to set up and work if you have something not as easy as our platform. But the thing is, the QR codes something people understand. They know it from television, shopping, their favorite, whatever. It's always on a QR code. And now we're pulling the same stuff into learning in the flow of work. You don't need to sit down and learn everything up front and take an exam and then you forget everything when you go out there in the field. But if there's not a QR code, I will call my boss and complain because I should be able to learn just before I use the operate the machine or I need to service the room or whatever.
Yeah. I think that also one of the biggest disadvantages, as they mention it, of video-based learning is that, well, you can't really track it. So, for instance, you prepared the video training for your employees, they turn it on, and then they go away to drink coffee. But this way, when we are talking about process trainings, right, it completely eliminates this issue because then you just can't
Yeah.
simply do your job if you don't watch this video, right?
Yes. But let me tell you a secret.
Let's not share with anyone.
Oh yeah, of course. And yeah, it's just between you and me, okay?
Yeah.
No, we actually can track if you're navigating away from the browser.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to, we could give our customers the ability to say, hey, Christian started the video and then he switched into another tab. So actually, the last 80% of the video has not been watched by him. So we have the ability to do that. But at the moment, and also because none of our current customers have asked for it, we have not made that sort of a tracking feature that we are sharing with the customers.
Mhm.
But what we do instead is we're saying, okay, if you create a motivational short video, just like YouTube, and I need to say the YouTube work because this is basically what is driving what we see now, and also what is creating the understanding of why platforms like Recourse, Eli can make a difference in learning, training, and spreading knowledge. That's because if you make a short video that is only 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes long, and people actually feel they learn something. If they have a small quiz with 5 questions and they answer all of them correctly, or the system guides them to get the right answer if they miss an answer or two, and then they can take a small test and share it with their friends on social media. If you do that, then you will actually see that people are consuming your knowledge much better than before. So why should I control if they watched it, if they understand and can answer the questions, and if they can take a test?
Yeah. Kind of in respect to the other side of the process, right? So we've discussed a lot what are the benefits of this technology of AI generated videos in particular for the content creator. In respect of the learner, so what do you think, how could the learner benefit from these kinds, from video-based training, AI-based training in particular?
Personalization and a better fit to you as a person. This is where, for instance, we can see an option for hitting diversity better,
Mhm.
because when I have created the script once, then I can create different versions of the video depending on who my audience is. And this is where that, if I was going back to your questions about expensive and discussion about pricing, if I'm going to do a full production of all my content, that would be extremely expensive. But some of the content would be possible to regenerate simply by saying, hey, generate the same video, but this time with a man of color, and he should be maybe 40 to 50 years, and he should speak American English as they do on the East Coast, not the West Coast. And then you can sort of say this hospital, for instance, or the people at this hospital, they will then get a character that fits better into their world. And suddenly maybe a third of your content can be, I wouldn't say personalized 100%, but it can fit much, much better compared to you having to say, oh my God, now I need to find 5 actors. I need to find a production facility. Oh, and this guy, he speaks British English. No, 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 no. If he speaks British English, it will never work.
Yeah.
So that's where I see the benefit of AI and the generation based on, for instance, input parameters like how does the person look like, what is the intonation, what is the language, and what dialect should it be.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that if you can relate to the content, then you can perceive it, then you can recall it eventually. Um, Likewise, and also, well, English is my second language, as you can probably hear by now, and I can feel firsthand the importance of the inclusion in this respect, in the accent, and something which is with the word which is pronounced in, let's say, Ireland, it's going to be out of context in the other countries. So, and it's the same language, right? It's still English. So, huge topic for discussion. But moving towards the, I'm looking over my on my right, and there is my phone over there. And if I think about it, 80% of the content that I consume is via mobile phone. So why shouldn't we leverage it in terms of corporate education? What are your views on the mobile integration, and what are the key considerations in ensuring seamless integration? Because it's not that easy in terms of corporate L&D, especially for multinational companies.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think the first important thing is that if your content and the training you like to share is not mobile first, then you're doing something wrong.
Mhm. Wow.
Because learning in the flow of work means that sometimes you are somewhere and you have 10 minutes until the next assignment, and you can catch up on what is coming next week. Or you can say, hey, there's a very important stuff that you need to read this before you do any maintenance on this type, or before you contact the customer. We found out that we have a problem with some data insurance. Now you need to know about it. And then you need to be able to contact people directly in one go. I can share some insights we did just in the early Corona days about, I think it's 3 years ago now.
Mhm.
I don't know, 4 years ago. One of the things we did was actually a small test where we told our customers, you know what, we'll send out to your employees, and then we'll run a small training course telling them about how to handle IT securities when working from home. That's a little different than working from the office. So we sent that out. And then after about 4 hours, we said to all the people who have not yet responded, send out a reminder but by text message. And that meant that in the first go, within the first 4 hours, they reach about 50 to 55% of the employees. But then when they 4 hours later send out a text message, they managed to reach almost 85%. So that means that even for a global corporation, they were able to reach 85% of the employees within 4 hours if they needed to share something.
Mm-hmm.
So the first answer is yes, mobile is a must. If you want to do modern learning, if you want to be able to move your workforce and your employees towards consuming learning when they need it and not, I don't know how it was in your country, but in some of the companies I used to work with or the companies I used to consult for, going on a training course was actually a work benefit. So
Mm-hmm.
you had 3 days away from the office, sometimes in a great location with hotels, and you could go out to bars and dining, etc., etc. And you don't really record what you learned, but you had a good time.
Yeah.
That's how it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And now we're moving towards what is the value of the company, and clearly learning and teaching people what they should know when they need it has a much higher value than guessing. What does Inna need? What does Christian need? What does Eileen need? Instead of saying, okay, here's the platform, here's how you find things yourself if you need it. And once in a while, we will call you for some stuff for compliance or security, or simply because, hey, we have received this issue, and just be aware that when you're talking to customers, this is the answer that we are telling about the problem or whatever.
Yeah. I feel that there are several eternal questions in corporate worlds, for instance, remote work or in office work, or should the learning be in working hours or not? And our whole conversation has answered that, well, if it's related to work, then how can it not be in time of work? Because if you don't know the process of simply doing the task, then yeah, you need to do it right now. So the whole concept of learning in the flow of work supports this idea. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I fully agree.
Yeah.
And it also changed the concepts a little because you learn what you need to do in order to do your job or the next job. And that's the best time to learn it, because if you're looking into some of the scientific experiments and understanding about learning, one of the things that is very important is that if you don't use the learning, you will lose it. Um, there's the forgetting curve by Ebbinghaus, which is one of the important things where we say this is where using small micro bites like videos really helps you, because you can sort of push it out so people recall it when they need it, or they have it more present because, now I know that's how it works. So that's clearly one of the benefits of using the modern technologies, and especially video. The second very important argument for spending more learning hours in video-based training is that this is how we have learned since humanity began.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn something, so I look at you, Ina. You show me with your hands or your feet or whatever how it works. Then I look at it, then I try it a little, then I look at you again, and suddenly I have copied you. And this is a very effective way to copy in this modern world where we have sort of focused too much about cost and time. That is to say, instead of asking Ina to be available every time Christian and Eileen and Dennis and someone else needs a training, well, let's make a number of small recordings and then everybody will see Ina doing it. And in this way, we will not have the telephone game problem. I don't recall. I think it has a different. It has different names in different countries. But I think most of you have tried the game in school or communication where you sit in a circle. The teacher whispers the first student something in their ears, and they
Oh,
need to whisper it all the way around. And at the end, the last person in the circle, he or she sets out, this is what I got. And then we ask the first person, but what was the message you received? And this is where utilizing video as peer training is very effective, because now it's Ina who has explained it to me. And if I have a problem, first of all, I heard it from the expert.
mm-hmm.
Secondly, if I have a problem, then I feel that I know Inna. So I can call her or I can send her an email because she seems like a nice person. She's a little tough in some of the details, but she's human, even though that I have only connected with her on video.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. And the final question that I wanted to ask, I was thinking a lot about AI and video-based learning and in general learning in the flow of work. So the current trends that we are discussing, and there are many people that have some concerns that what if it will pass? Yeah, what if it's just a fad? What if we shouldn't invest all of our resources into this? So reflecting on your own journey, the co-founder and the product officer, what key lessons have you learned about driving innovation and staying ahead in a rapidly evolving industry like EdTech, where you don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow?
That's actually a tough question. And it's a question that I wouldn't say every day, but at least every week, we sit down and then we decide A, B, C, or nothing. And very often we end up doing a little of C and maybe nothing. And we don't believe that, for instance, AI is going to leave learning and development ever. It is so effective in many ways. There are so many aspects where AI can help both the content creation, the content maintenance, but certainly also the learner. And this is where I would see some progress, not only in what we do, but also what others do. That is, you as a learner get something suggested that is better for you than before. Simply because we can map out what did you do, what did other people like you do. We can look into your calendar and see that, oh, next week you're going to work at this customer and they have these following machines or they have this software you need to understand. So maybe it will share a small reminder. Okay, how does Salesforce work when it's running on a Mac? So in this way, I think that it is there. And the hard part, and that's where we are a little worried. We're a small company. We are distributed. We have people in 1, 2, 3, 4 time zones, I think, 4, 5 time zones. Uh, and we cannot invest in everything. We cannot ask the development team or the customer consultants to understand and test everything. So we think that there are specialists out there, and what we'd like to do is to connect to the best of them in their respective area. And here, like for instance, we have an ongoing integration relationship with you because you do great videos and you are following the trend of AI, and that means that we can be a little behind. And at the same time, if our customers, they come and ask, then we can say, well, talk to this guy. They are great for this type of content and they can create your videos in no time. And when the video is ready, you can put them into our platform and use them like any other video you already created. So the decision is, when should we move so it's part of the application, and when should we leverage what other people like you are doing? And at the same time, I think, I don't know who said it, but I read it earlier today. It's not so much important about what is available now, but what are the things that are not changed over time. And what is not changed is that we need to help people learn something to be happy, do their job better, go home, smile to their wife and their neighbors and everything. And in this way, because they're a success, because they understood what they're doing or they got the training that helped them to do it, then this is what we're delivering. This is what we as learning specialists, like you and many others around in the industry, they should maybe make sure that the learning gets to the person who needs it when they need it,
Mhm.
and preferably in the format they prefer.
Yeah. Sounds great. I feel that our views align in many, many topics. So thank you, Christian, for providing your invaluable expertise on such topics as learning the flow for work, mobile integration, and of course, AI. So there you have it, dear listeners. I hope you've enjoyed our conversations as much as I have. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share. And of course, stay tuned for for more conversations on the future of education. This is Inna signing off from Eli Talks. Until the next time. Eli Talks, the podcast where we dive